Branch Rickey mentioned to you the name of Jackie Robinson and a scouting trip that he wanted you to make to Chicago, what were Branch Rickey's specific instructions to you?
He called me in and he said, I want you to go to Chicago Friday and see a game between the Kansas City Monarchs and the Lincoln Giants Friday night, paying particular attention to a shortstop named Robinson, and especially his arm. Now he said, I want you to identify yourself. Tell him who sent you, and you want to see his arm. When I get to Chicago, I always get around early, and I sat down, I'm waiting, and he comes out with a couple other boys, and I hailed him, motioned for him to come over, delivered my message, and he was thunderstruck. He couldn't conceive of why Mr. Rickey was interested in him or his arm. He said, I'd be very happy to show you my arm, but I fell on my shoulder. I said to him, now, since you're not playing, I'll probably be leaving here around the 6th, 7th inning. How about coming down to the hotel? I'll try to answer some of the questions that Mr. Rickey will ask you.
I believe you talked to him that first time for about 2 hours from what I've read and from what I've researched.
Oh, yeah.
What were your impressions of him during that first conversation you had?
He grows on you all the time. He's an intelligent fellow, and determination written all over him. Oh, I knew Robinson would make a terrific impression on him. I introduced him to Mr. Rickey. Mr. Rickey said he opened the conversation. All my life I've been looking for a great colored ball player. He said, I have reason to think that you may be that man. But he said, I need more than a great ball player. He said, I need a man that will turn the other cheek, take the worst kind of abuse that a person can be exposed to. He wasn't exaggerating because he knew it was waiting. And Robinson, we're talking Montreal contract to him now. A year in Montreal and up to Brooklyn. And Robinson said, well, Mr. Rickey, I think I can play in Montreal, and I think I can play in Brooklyn. But he said, I'll take your judgment on that. But if you want to take this gamble, I'll promise you there'll be no incident. It was supposed to be for 2 years or 3 years. I forget what the time was. You can't talk back. They call you things, they abuse you, and you're not going to be allowed to, you just have to take it. Well, Robinson said, I promise you, there'll be no incident. when he tells him he can't answer back, he said, if some guy slides into you and calls you a black so-and-so, you could come up swinging and be justified. But he said you'd set the cause back 20 years. So, but Robinson, I mean, it's not only his own stake. He's carrying the whole colored race on his shoulders. I mean, for the next generation, maybe. It's quite a lot to put on one man's shoulders.
Now, it's often been said that you were the man that scouted Robinson before he signed with the Dodgers, but that really wasn't the case because of the injury. You actually didn't get a chance to see Robinson play until
I
after
never
Rickey
saw
signed
him. I never saw him play until spring of '46 in Sanford, Florida, in spring training, and I didn't see too much of him there. We were about 4 or 5 days. Walked in there, and Mr. Rickey said, "Well, we got the word last night." I said, "What was the word?" "Get those two black boys out of town before midnight, or we will." So that, that was Robinson's initiation. I don't know who was on the other end of the telephone line, and I don't think Rickey did either. He didn't know whether it was local authorities. No, it wasn't any of the city people, because he'd cleared that winter before. He'd been down there in the winter and had that all set up. But I imagine it was somebody with pretty strong racial feelings. They got him out of town all right, and take him over. The Montreal club's reporting down there to West Palm Beach. He goes down and joins that club, and now it's time for the exhibition games. Well, the first one's supposed to be in Jacksonville, and the fellow in Jacksonville called up and said, "Don't bring that nigger up here, or there won't be a ball game." Mr. Rickey said, "Well, you're talking to the wrong man. Mr. Hopper happens to be the manager, and that's Mr. Hopper's decision." "Well, if you bring him up, there'll be no game." And he was right. Go up there, and the gate is bolted. And that hurt Jack. I mean, it not only deprived him of an opportunity to help himself, but he's handicapping all the rest of the boys on the club. Oh, it hurt him real bad. But nothing surprised him. He had been well primed. I mean, he knew what he was in front of, and he hesitated quite a bit before he answered that question, and saying there'll be no incident. And that was what impressed Rickey. I mean, that was made him much more anxious to. He was a college man. He was he could realize all of the things that he was in front of. Had spring training in Sanford and Florida. When they came north to open the International League season, they're opening in Jersey City. And back in those days, Mayor Haig used to excuse all of the city employees, and they packed the ballpark. Well, the day before they do in Jersey City, Frank Shaughnessy, the president of the International League, came over and pleaded with Mr. Rickey, "Don't bring that fellow over there where you're going to have a race riot." Well, Mr. Rickey, he never cut anybody off. He always wanted to get the full complaint. Well, after he had all that he's going to hear from Shaughnessy, he said, "Frank, Robinson's going to play, and I'll bet you everything that I own or could borrow that when the game is over, he'll be the most popular man in the ballpark. Well, that was an understatement. Ed Robinson got 4 hits, a home run, stole several bases, and they wouldn't let him leave the field. The applause. They kept him out there a long time after the game was over. Of course, that was good. I mean, that would build him up somewhat, I would think.